Welcome to the Merick N H Ulrik podcast Midnight Review, hosted by Cleave Bourbon and Nate Glenn. Tonight, we review Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, and Collective Soul, Here to Eternity album. It's a great talk. Enjoy the show. Hey guys, thanks for being back with us. Nate, so good to have you as well. And Cleave, always good to have you, my friend, on the podcast. So we're reviewing two releases that came out this year. They're not super new. A lot of you guys have probably heard of Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. And we also have Collective Soul, Here to Eternity. And so we want to give y'all our feedback on this album and this movie. So we're excited to be here tonight. Non-related to our podcast tonight, I had a release today. I released a book called The War Drums of Canth, and this book is a departure from some other stuff I've been writing. It is general audiences. It is clean. It is military fantasy. It is dwarven epic high fantasy, and so I'm liking it. I just, I'm feeling one of those moments at Cleve. I don't know if you ever feel self-doubt or anything like that, because I'm trying to see well, what is going to be the response of people to read it, because I feel like it's a very heartfelt book and something different. I just know that sex sells. It's kind of funny getting away from that, doing something that's just really, this is a book that anybody could read. A 13-year-old, a 10-year-old could read. Somebody who's 70 could read it. I think it's a good story. But then again, now I'm sometimes I'm very confident. And now I feel like I'm okay, waiting for reactions of readers. Do I have any talent at all? Am I a schmuck? And what am I? Yeah. So, but I think it's a great story. I kind of went a long direction because it's a very long, broad story. It's one of 3 books, and it's not a short story. So I don't know if you can give me any kind of words of advice, Cleve, or just tell me I suck and just quit.
Well, imposter syndrome, like I was just saying, imposter syndrome is a thing with almost any creative, but you have to think of it this way. There's not any actor, any author, anybody out there that somebody hasn't told them that they suck at one point in time. Everyone has a story of that. Yeah. And if we went by that person who said that you sucked, then no, we wouldn't have any art at all.
You know, what was the guy, Martin Scorsese, I think it was. It was the guy who did Twin Peaks. What was his name? Yeah. So he was saying the other day, it's not about you. It's not, you don't have a career. You do what you love. If you love doing it, then that's what it's all about. So you don't have to become anything other than what you are. You have to do what you love to do. And if you're actually able to write a book and complete it, then yeah, you have talent. I mean, it takes talent just to be able to accomplish that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And also, it's always scary when you release a book. When you release one, when your baby's out into the world.
And this is a new one. It's so new because the style is kind of different. It's kind of meandering, and I would say there's about 10 main characters, and they're not all on the same scene till the last chapter. So, you know what I'm saying? It's got a lot of moving parts, and I don't know if people will like that. Also, dwarves are kind of a weird race of creatures to focus on, but there's a reason why this is in the world that I've created. And this is like a history of this land. And so I started at the very beginning of the history of this part of the land. So I enjoyed proofreading it, actually. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but I
sounds cool.
Yeah. So anyways, so Nate, what are you working on, man? Anything? You got some gigs coming up here pretty soon with the Loose Helmet. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, we got Leon's Lounge, August 24th. We're going to also be doing some shows in, I believe, San Antonio. We might be going to Beaumont, Texas. We might be going to Dallas. So we've got some, a lot of dates coming up. But you'll have to check our Facebook page, Loose Helmet, on Facebook, and you will see all of the dates when they show up. Yeah.
Sounds good. We'll have some links in the description here. So if you guys want to follow Loose Helmet, they're a weird punk band. No, I was kidding. They're a punk band though. They're definitely punk.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Nate's a really good drummer. He's a very talented drummer. So I think you'll like if you like punk. And it's hard to say because they're a unique band, but they're really good. So check
We're
them out.
new wave. We're like Bay City wave punk.
Yeah, that is over a lot of people's heads, Nate. All right. All right. Well, Cleve, before we get started, anything new in your world you want to talk about? Your cat or anything good? You know?
And my cat's running around here, so I keep looking at.
Yeah.
People wondering why I keep looking off screen. She's making noise. But anyway, no, I'm working on Tournament of Mages. I'm working on White Mage Rhapsody, and the next book in the series. I'm actually writing on two at the same time
Mm-hmm.
because they intertwine, and so it's just easier to keep track of everything to write both to keep going back and forth to each one.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, as an author, is you'll write one book, and then when I get to the next book, by the time I get through the editing and all that kind of stuff, I've forgotten what I've written when I'm writing the next book, and it's just kind of easier to keep track. So that's what I'm kind of doing. So it might be a little slower, but that's what I've got going. So trying to get that out pretty soon.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And yeah, very very interesting. Very very interesting. So
As
we're
a
going to talk.
software developer, I've noticed that same thing myself. When I get finished with the program, I forget everything that I wrote after a
Mm-hmm.
certain time. So if I want to actually go in and change it, I have to get in there and relearn what I did.
Do
Yeah,
you?
exactly.
I think I asked you this on the podcast when I interviewed Cleve, but do you have kind of sort of a running wiki for your world? I need to maybe get a wiki or some kind of special software that I can drop stuff in so that I could go back to it.
That's a good
Almost
idea. I haven't done that. Just my website, but
you like have
um,
like a wiki there. I know there's some like actual software you can get for fantasy world building that you can actually like drop stuff in, kind of like becoming your own historian of this
Hmm.
world, and
that's
that
cool.
The lore, right? Yeah.
if you can remember what your lead protagonist's eyes color was, it's important. They're all brown.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get started. We're talking about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And who wants to go first? I kind of don't want to go first. So if somebody else wants to jump in, I'll go first if you want me to.
Did it
Well,
make you nostalgic for the original Ghostbusters, or does it matter?
just whatever you think, because I definitely have an opinion on it. Okay, I can go. I can go first. Okay, I watched it for the first time, and then I watched it again because I missed some parts, and then I watched it again, and I guess I don't know what I was expecting because it was new Ghostbusters. There were some things about it that was good, but I kind of almost wish that they hadn't put the old Ghostbusters characters in there. I kind of wish they didn't have Dan Aykroyd. Bill Murray, to me, all throughout the movie, just seemed like he was collecting a paycheck. He didn't seem like he was funny. I didn't get any backstory on what he's been doing for all these years. Maybe the movie before this explains a little bit, but also it just seemed like he was like reading lines, and I got the feeling like he was like almost like not acting on purpose. And so I just thought of this movie kind of went in the category as does it need to exist? Because like I'm a very big fan of Ghostbusters 1 and 2. I love Ghostbusters. I remember I got to see Ghostbusters at my aunt's house. She had HBO, and my parents wouldn't let us watch stuff with ghosts in it because that was of the devil. So I got to
Hmm.
finally
Hmm.
see it, and I was like, wow, this is a good movie. And then Ghostbusters 2, and they have a little bit of innuendos and stuff like that. It was really funny. And then so they go back to a lot of the things. Is this just another franchise that is just milking the fans dry because you got a brand like this will sell? So we're going to milk it and we're going to add some young people in there, but we're going to bring out these crusty old guys here just to milk the fandom for one more movie. Like, can we get like maybe another $1 million out of these guys or another 10 million? Come on, just squeeze it out of them. And I
Of
mean, I
course,
know
that's what's happening.
it
Yeah.
wasn't that bad, but I mean, like, okay, another thing that I want to say about the movie that I didn't like is like I kind of like the Fire Master character. There was a good character, but they didn't build him up. Like I know nothing about this guy. Why didn't his grandmother teach him about the Fire Master? How come he didn't know anything about that? Was he such a bad screw up that his grandmother couldn't tell him like, "Hey, look, I have to tell you this. I am a keeper of the sacred fire, and there's an evil demon in this thing, and you better not let it out, boy." But no, her whole life, none of that wasn't passed down. We don't know why. he was such a screw up and wanted to sell his grandma's stuff for $50. We know very little about the Fire Master. We just expected to just infer whatever they told us about him. I kind of wish they had a little build up about that. No build up about the Fire Master. And then there's another thing I thought was kind of weird. Okay, the 16-year-old female in the movie who was kind of like one of the main characters in the plot kind of rested on her. What was her name? I can't remember the character's name. Was it Tia or something? I can't remember. But anyways, the 16-year-old
The
female who,
ghost or the girl,
not the
Phoebe.
ghost, but the was it Phoebe?
Phoebe.
Yeah, so Phoebe, she get kicked out of the Ghostbusters because she's a minor. Like, this is a dangerous job, you know? You can't be doing ghosts. You can't be busting no ghosts. We can't be on the force and shooting bad guys. It's dangerous. You can't have minors here. So, like, okay, Phoebe, you can't do this. And then this ghost starts appearing to her. And the one thing, I'm thinking weird things. Maybe I'm just a weirdo. Just stop me, okay? I'm just a weird guy. But, like, okay, so she starts playing chess with the ghost, and the ghost, so what's the worst thing about being a ghost? Like, well, you're 16 forever. And it kind of inferred to me like this entity, this ghost, was like maybe 116 years old. I'm guessing like this ghost has been around for like 200 years, right? So what if this ghost was not some cute 16-year-old girl, but like some cute 16-year-old boy who was actually 116 years old, and he was kind of perving on this little 16-year-old girl, but like he's really like a 116-year-old little dude who's like kind of, now I know they didn't ever get explicit in any kind of way. It was very implied that there was some kind of sexual tension between the two, but it wasn't like overtly like thrown in your face. They didn't kiss or anything like that. So that was kind of a weird thing. Like, she's
Well, I
falling for a
mean,
ghost,
I
but it was
would point out,
implied, but it wasn't really what.
when you're 16, you don't want to be 16 anymore. So she could have just gone up in flames the day before. She'd
Yeah,
already be complaining about being 16 forever. Like, now I know I'm never going to grow up because, I'm a ghost
yeah,
now. So dang it.
that's
I
true.
was looking forward to being 17.
I guess maybe I inferred too much, because I could think like maybe she's been like a ghost for like hundreds of years and she just wants to go back to her family.
That's
Which
probably,
is
yeah, it's
ironic
possible.
because people my age, we love to be 16 again.
Yeah, I
A lot of
know.
us,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
everybody.
But I guess if you were 16 for like 100 years, you'd be like, I don't identify as being 16 anymore, but golly, I look 16. So, I mean, there was that. That's a minor thing. That's just some weird idea. So just forget that. But let's go back to the movie. I think some of the things were kind of cool, but like even when Bill Murray was like talking to that guy who was the mayor after they saved the day, and he was like, "You clown, you'll never get it." It just seemed like he was just reading lines, and then when they had that one line where Dan Aykroyd and then they pulled the lever down, the old golden years. I'm just like, just did that land for you? It's just like we're just milking these old actors for one more movie. And I think Bill Murray resisted being in the Ghostbusters for a long, long time, and I think his instinct was right. My guess is somebody just offered him a bunch of cash just to come, show up. We'll film you for a day or two. Maybe they only had Bill Murray for like 2 days, and so he just like spouted some lines and he was out of there. I bet that's what happened. I bet Bill Murray wasn't there a long time. They just had him for a few days, catch these scenes, and if and they were like, well, he's gone. Just this is what you got, because I felt like Bill Murray didn't want to be there. Paul Rudd is good for most stuff, but it's just like I guess the tension of how he wanted to be the dad and the stepdaughter wasn't really accepting him and that kind of thing. I get that because I sort of have stepdaughters. We're not married, but like I'm just Joe Schmuck to them. I'm nobody, and so
It
I
would be
get that.
nice if there was a progression to that relationship, but there really wasn't. It
It
was
was
really
kind of a
just, that's
forced
all it
progression.
was.
All of a sudden, she called. We're doing just full out spoilers. So if you haven't seen this, we just ruined the whole movie for you. No warning at all. I'm sorry, but like,
She does
okay,
call him dad in the end. Now there's no point in you watching the movie.
just forget this movie. And I mean, go watch Ghostbusters 1, and Ghostbusters 2 is half as good as Ghostbusters 1, but it still makes it like 10 times better than this movie. Now I know I'm being
I don't
critical.
know. The Ghostbusters 2 wasn't bad,
It was
but
good.
what you got to understand is this is a completely different genre of
Yes.
movie than Ghostbusters 1
I
or
was
2.
about to say that. I was waiting for my turn to say that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
go ahead.
okay. Let's let Cleve talk. Okay, let
Get
me
a
just finish
ball.
up. So I'm really gonna give this. I would say like, okay, I don't know. I don't want to be too negative, but I mean, there was some parts that were kind of interesting. I'm trying to think of the positive. I like the firemen at the beginning of the movie when they go in the building. That was kind of cool. That was really good. Um, the
The
villain
Secret Society was cool.
Baraku or whatever kind of seemed kind of cool and evil for a little while. And when the girl got separated from her spirit, that was kind of scary. I think that would be the scariest part right there. Um, I don't know. So I'm pretty
I know.
negative on this movie. I'm sorry. So Cleve, I already just crapped on this movie. So maybe you can bring us up here to some lightness about this movie.
Well, I was going to say that the original Ghostbusters came out in 1984. I was 16
Yeah.
back then, and it was a different era. And I always thought they were kind of goofy, in a good way goofy.
Well, let me pause it real quick because you just made me think of something because I'm going back to my childhood here. Yeah, I think the Ghostbusters were about making money. Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray just wanted to scam people and make money. Okay, go back. It wasn't that serious about saving the world. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, and they were kind of goofy. Yeah, he was just trying to hit on pretty girls too. Bill Murray's character, Dr. Vinkman.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you had the dynamic of them, being the Ghostbusters, and then this is a completely different era. Like when it started with Afterlife and everything, it's Egon's family, and of course, I miss Egon in the show
Yes.
because that was my favorite character, to be honest, because he was just so stoic, but stoic in a funny way.
Yes. Yes.
know?
He was our big
Uh,
writer too. Ramos,
yeah, and
Harold Ramis.
I love Groundhog Day, and I love Hal Ramis movies. But so I was cool. It's cool that they're his family. I think Phoebe was supposed to be like his replacement in a way, to be like him or somewhat. But even though she wasn't really, it's playing in the background behind you right now.
Yeah, I have it playing right now. Yeah.
And so it's a different era. You have to kind of take it in context of that. It's not quite as goofy. I mean, even in the second movie, they had all the people from the Titanic showing up, which was cool.
Yeah.
They arrived late, but here they are. And the slime
Yeah.
river
Slimer.
and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of in the Statue of Liberty walking and the Stay Plus Marshmallow Man. They were just kind of
Yeah.
goofy stripes kind of type movies. And these movies are a little bit different. I think they do a little bit more serious bend
Yeah.
on them a little bit nowadays. The last two movies, however, I think they have lost something in them because they kind of lost that fun goofiness a little
I
bit.
just remembered my favorite part in the movie because you said that. I was telling my 8-year-old daughter because I watched it again with my 8-year-old. My favorite part in the movie is when Slimer eats the ghost that turns himself into a pizza. That's my favorite part of the movie. Sorry.
That is pretty funny. But yeah, so, and of course, I don't know. I agree with a lot of what you said. I think that Bill Murray was just kind of phoning it in. He just kind of showed up. It's like when they were having the frost was coming in and they were all stuck in the firehouse. He's just like, hey, how's everybody going? And he pops open the thing and pulls out the bourbon or whatever. and like it's been hidden there for, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And
Nobody looked in there.
it's kind of like, look at me. I'm just kind of here for some reason.
They rehashed a lot of things. So like when he was talking to the Firewalker and he had the thing on his head, that was the whole mind reading thing he was supposed to be doing. That they had that with the. It would have been kind of cool if Rick Moranis was in this movie. I don't think he's been in anything in years, but when they were doing the tests on that guy and then he kept throwing the pin at him too, that was kind of okay. It was kind of getting him. Maybe if they had built up the Fire Master a little bit more, I would have more a stake in him, and I would have kind of liked to know like what was Bill Murray up to when he just showed up. Maybe that
Yeah.
would have been not
That
Bill
would be
Murray. I'm
interesting.
sorry, it's Vinkman, Dr. Vinkman.
Dr.
My apologies.
Vinkman. Yeah,
Yeah.
but even in the first movie, they didn't really explain the key, the key
The
holder and
Keymaster, yeah,
the key master and what was the other, the
yeah,
gatekeeper or something.
that's true.
They didn't really explain that either too well. They just kind of threw that in.
But I think Ghostbusters is a great like Halloween movie. It's so silly. I would love to watch that during Halloween.
Yeah, it is silly, but I think like the current movies have kind of lost a little bit of that silliness. They're a little bit more. I think they're trying to update them a little bit, which is fine. Um, I think it's good for what it is, and I think both Afterlife and Frozen Empire are probably geared more towards, the younger set
Yeah.
anyway.
Well,
I don't
you had
think- I
the
don't
you
think
had
they're
uh
their
you
audience.
had very success with Stranger Things. So maybe here's my thing. If I'm being critical, I'm not being critical at all. I'm being so nice. But I would say that what if they did the movie without the old Ghostbusters and they just had the young people and gear it more towards Stranger Things? I think that would be like a more true movie, but I feel like they had to put the old guys in just for to fill some more seats and maybe get some more people into the movie.
Well, maybe it's just a transition. Maybe the next one that comes out, if there is a next one, which there probably will be, um, we'll just have them in it. Probably won't have the old guys in it. Maybe Dan Aykroyd because he seems to be like a mentor type character.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, maybe.
Well, I wasn't
So,
won over. I would say, to me, this movie was like a 2-star for me. But then again, it was good production and stuff. And then probably I'm way more negative. It just didn't do it for me.
I think it's about 3.5 for me.
That's good.
Right, Nate? What you got to say, bud?
It was all right. Now, what I'd like to say first of all is that the original Ghostbusters wasn't trying to be Ghostbusters; it just was, and it
Yeah.
wasn't trying to call back to anything. It was just
Yeah.
a weird, goofy movie. Now, Ghostbusters was picking up these characters who were basically losers, right? Kind of strange. One of them was very smart, but didn't really fit into the academic world. He was getting
Hmm.
kicked out of the university. This other guy was just, a
Good game
loser.
show host, right?
Yeah. So they all kind of banded together and said, hey, let's strike out on our own. Let's start a small business, right?
Yeah.
And the whole thing was about them starting, just trying to make money,
Yeah.
trying to find an angle. They weren't
Yeah.
necessarily scamming anybody because what they were doing was real, but it was also really messed up. And,
Yeah.
which is
The
which is
whole
part of
joke
the
about
funny
having
part of it.
the nuclear proton packs, and they're like, we have
Right.
unlicensed nuclear devices on our backs, guys, and they're like,
Yeah, if you cross beams, you might end the entire universe, right? That was part of it. This is
yeah,
very dangerous. We
that was
shouldn't
so
be doing
funny.
any of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was a comedy. It was a
Yeah.
comedy where these guys were really schlubs.
Yeah.
And like the scene where they're going up the stairs.
Yeah.
They're running in to save the day, and then it shows them just kind of slipping up the stairs, and oh my God, we've got 20 more of these.
And they tear up
So
the ballroom, and the guy's like, I'm not paying you for any of this. Well, we'll just let it go and get it back. That
yeah,
was
I
a
mean,
good movie.
I don't have a problem with the new versions necessarily. It's just not the same thing. It is
Yeah.
trying to be
Yeah. I think how,
Ghostbusters, and it's more
yeah,
about Ghostbusters than it is the story, the
it's just the brand.
characters. It's more about the brand, right? So they're
Yeah.
trying to be this world, this cinematic world, and calling
Eh,
back to the old characters as
It's
part
been
of that.
40 years. They can't get a new car. Come on, man. That car's got to be like, you need to be in a museum.
Well,
It
they
Yeah,
needs
tried
to
that.
be in a museum. It
They
needs to be in a museum. So
they
do you,
tried
Dr.
that.
Jones.
They
Sorry.
tried that in the 2016 one, which we will not mention.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That one was really
yeah, the one that
unpopular.
was also a comedy, but it was not funny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they did
Um,
upgrade the car in that one, but it was
like where he said basically just
that's out
ad
of
lib in
canon.
front of the camera, ad lib, dance.
yeah.
That'll be funny maybe, but not really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, I
And,
mean,
and the part two was good too. I thought. I mean, part two was much bigger and more elaborate, but also had that same kind of heart and
Ghostbusters 2,
soul
you
to
mean?
it.
Ghostbusters 2,
Ghostbusters
the
too. Yeah, that's what
yeah.
I'm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember when that came out, everybody was wanting another Ghostbusters so bad, so badly. And then I remember watching like Entertainment Tonight or something back in that time period, and they were like the new Ghostbusters, and we were all like, "Yay!" You know, that was probably I don't know when did it come out. It came
About
out a lot. Yeah,
88, I believe.
yeah, it came out quite a few years after the first one, and we didn't think we were going to get a second one, and then
Hmm.
it came out, and I remember being so excited about it. And
I think the truest euphemism for all this was said in Spaceballs. He says, "I'll see you in Spaceballs 2, the search for more money."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically
yeah, it
that's
was definitely a money grab.
and I
Yeah,
do feel like Hollywood, but it's like kind of an understood money grab. This is what we're supposed to do. If we don't do this, we're not doing our jobs, because basically yeah, they're going for is a known sell. Like there's no risk. It's not unknown title. The brand is known. It will sell, and I guess that's where we're living in the land of content creation. Not so like you know. So as an independent storyteller, Merick N H Ulrik and Cleave Bourbon, we're all in the opposite spectrum. We don't have big brands. We're trying to write original stories, and hopefully that people will pick up on that and tell their friends, like, hey, this was a really cool story. You got to check it out. So that's what we're hoping to do. But we don't have a huge brand to like be like, whoa, Cleave Bourbon is. I know he's better than me, but I mean, he's like still. I mean, golly, you don't have the same thing with Nate. You got your band here. You're not Rolling Stones, so you know. Where am I going with this? You guys are
Well,
not
let me just say, okay, when I go to see a movie like this, I expect it to be a cash grab. I
kind of
expect
like
to
this.
see,
Yeah,
yeah, I expect to see the old characters being rehashed. I expect to see the same story being redone.
yeah.
I don't care about that. I want to know, is it entertaining? Am I going to enjoy watching this?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to like the visuals? Am I going to like the characters? You know, these characters in this one were not stellar, okay, but I did enjoy them at certain points. The
Mm-hmm.
Firebringer, whatever his name was,
Fire Master
Firemaster, he was
He
kind of
annoys
hit and
me.
miss. He was
Nadine.
annoying at times. He was also funny at times, okay, so
Yeah,
hit and miss. Phoebe, she was a likable character. I liked her interactions with the ghost. Right, that was kind of funny and interesting.
I think
So
they
there
could
were
have built the
things in this
Fire
movie,
Master. I think they could have made that character more interesting.
but some of the
Anyways,
writing was just not up to it. Some of the writing, or some of his dialogue was just a little bit off. But some of it was okay. So it's kind of there were things in this movie that I did enjoy. There were visuals I enjoyed. There were characters I enjoyed. There was
yeah.
also characters that put me to sleep. You know, the parents,
What?
I don't really know who they are or what they're doing there.
You know what? I guess we brought this up on episode. I don't know what 2 or 3 episodes ago. Nostalgia is a pain of the past. And I feel like
Hmm.
we've been reviewing bands and movies that are tied to the past. So maybe I am triggered because I love Ghostbusters. So forgive me, Cleve. I'm just triggered and it's bringing back a nostalgia and I'm feeling the pain of the past because I love Ghostbusters and we're not going back to 1984. We could wish it would be like that, but we
Well, I
know
wish I could back to
he's
1984.
not getting any younger. Bill Murray is not getting any younger, and he refuses to do any Botox or anything. So he's not going to be is. And Dan Aykroyd is not as funny as he was when he was on Blues Brothers, but that's just the pain of the past, the nostalgia.
Right.
So maybe it hit me
Well,
different than other people.
well, and also you got to remember too. I mean, we can have a whole episode about this, but Hollywood, these movies are millions of dollars. So
Yeah,
the executives are like, well, let's do something that we know that we can make money from. And people complain to me all the time. They say, well, Hollywood doesn't have any original stories. I'm like, they have tons of original stories. They're just not going to make them because they're unknowns. They're too unknown.
right.
I mean, every once in a while, someone will get a wild hair and go, okay, we'll make this movie, and then it does wild. It's wildly successful, like Forrest Gump or something.
Yeah.
But that's pretty rare.
Okay.
It's usually has some star power or some huge director behind it that gets it pushed through.
Here, good point. And here I would say, my lovely girlfriend. She's a supermodel. She works for Playboy magazine. But anyways, my girlfriend and I were watching Reservoir Dogs. Okay, and let's just say like that movie was a great movie. Now this is done like a long time ago. This is I believe Quentin Tarantino's first movie. So
First
that was
movie,
like
yeah.
coming up, and it had barely like no special effects. It had almost like the same location almost the whole movie there in the warehouse, and they had a few other clips and stuff. A very low budget movie, but it was so good because the dialogue and the writing was good. But then again, they weren't trying to do a remake of anything. They were just telling a story with really good acting and a really good script. And maybe if you have a good script, then everything's good. I don't know, but then again, that wasn't a big budget movie, and Hollywood didn't decide to make it. I think Quentin Tarantino decided to make it, and then they started taking some of his other stuff. I'm guessing because I don't think that was a big Hollywood movie.
And I would think that he was pretty heavily influenced by some of the cinema that he watched coming up as a
Yeah.
kid. Some of the old '50s gangster movies, maybe some of the detective movies. The noir.
Yep.
So
You know
that
what Quentin
I think
Tarantino's favorite movie is? Because I watched a thing about him. Can y'all guess what it is? He
Mm,
makes girls watch this before he goes on a date. I think before he met his wife, or if he's still single, he would make women watch this with him when he is on a date. And if they didn't like him, he didn't get them back on a second date.
Hmm. Well,
what
what
is it?
was it?
Rio Bravo with John Wayne. Rio Bravo. Can you
Really?
see that? Rio Bravo. You know the funny thing about Rio Bravo? The sets were made 3/4 size. So like all the chairs and everything were 3/4 size to make John Wayne look bigger. Everything was
Hmm.
smaller. So like the doors were 3/4 size. So John Wayne's going through and he's barreling through it. He's a big old guy. It's funny. But I like
Hmm.
that movie too. It's a very colorful Western, and I can see how he does it. Anyways, sorry, I've been rambling. Guys,
It's funny
sorry
that
for
he didn't
talking
like
over.
True Grit or one of John Wayne's more famous westerns,
I
right?
think he likes
True
the more
Grit was a really good one.
colorful stuff. True Grit was good too.
Yeah.
McClintock. I like McClintock and also like Rio Bravo, but um, I think I like the Searchers
Oh, I
the
was gonna
most.
say the Searchers. I was gonna let you speak though. The Searchers is one of my favorite, but I do like Rio Bravo. I kind of watch it like every Christmas or when I'm in a bad mood. I just watch it because I like it.
The Searchers always makes me sad. But anyway,
Yes, it makes me sad too. But the scenery is so good. Did John Ford direct that one? I think John
I
Ford did.
think so.
Yeah, it's a very good movie. The
For
Searchers. Red River is a black and white, but Red River is a good story. But yeah, as far as westerns go, John Wayne. All right, guys, have we finished talking about Ghostbusters? Because I'm already talking about John
Yeah.
Wayne westerns.
Yep.
All right, so let's break for commercial break and check out these fabulous commercials, products you're going to love, and we'll be right back. Have you read Red Mage Ascending, the Mage of Blood Magic, in the Tournament of Mages Book 1 by Cleave Bourbon? The servant girl has a secret, and she's hiding it in plain sight. Hannah works for a well-to-do family who treats her well, but something is not quite right. The servant girl doesn't act like a servant. She speaks with multiple languages, including High Elvish. She is a skilled musician and a talented artist. There is also another talent, but its secret Hannah guards closely. She can use blood magic. She is hiding because she knows if she is found out, she will have to fight in the Tournament of Mages, a contest where she will be pitted against 5 other mages with different forms of magic. She has left everything behind, her family, her friends, and the one secret she dares not reveal. Now available on Kindle, audiobooks on Audible, in hardcover and paperback. Find it online on Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble's, iBooks, Kobo, and wherever you buy good books. This book is by Cleave Bourbon. Buy it now. Have you read Brothers of Chaos Part 1, an epic coming-of-age dark fantasy tale by Merick N H Ulrik? Vandrin of House Glenclair faces insurmountable odds fighting against the corrupt Melborians. He will rely on an unexpected friendship with an elf named Zankadin Umbadin and his alluring sister Zyla. Together they will face the will of the Blood Queen, Empress Ash Exana, and a treacherous plot of a beautiful young blood mage named Lilith. This series is epic fantasy, sword and sorcery, mild dark fantasy with some adult situations. You may find it on Amazon Kindle Unlimited, audiobooks with Audible, and you can buy the whole series in print. Brothers of Chaos by Merick N H Ulrik. All right, and we're back. Now we're talking about Collective Soul, Here to Eternity, that was just released in May 10th, 2024. Who wants to start talking about this 20-song album? I believe it's 20-song
It's a double
album.
album. Yeah.
Yeah, double album. Cleve, do you want to start first, or Nate, or do you want me to go first?
I think we'll
I
let
can.
Cleve go.
Yeah, I can talk about it. Collective Soul's one of my favorite bands, and I'm a huge fan. But I liked a couple songs that were very. If you like the old Collective Soul from the '90s, what was it?
Mm-hmm.
Mother's Love, I think, is very. I mean, the guitars and everything sounds completely exactly like Collective Soul from the '90s.
Hmm.
And then you get to some of the other ones, and I thought, they're okay. There's a few catchy songs in there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't. There's a couple of songs that Collective Soul does really well, slow. Like Shine is kind of a in between kind of show, kind of slow, kind of not. The World I Know is kind of slow, but it's really good, from the
Hmm.
'90s.
Hmm.
But I was hoping for songs like Heavy and Where the River Flows and stuff, really catchy, you know. And I didn't really hear much of that on this album. It seemed like it was more of a retrospective kind of, I forget what the lead singer's name is. I looked it up before the podcast, but I forgot it now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but it seems like he was just kind of maybe reminiscing about his life or something like that. Just kind of going through some of that kind of stuff.
Or going back to
Um,
the early period of the band, maybe.
yeah, maybe something like that. And it was good. It's not my favorite Collective Soul album, to be honest, but it's not bad. I mean, I would probably give it about a 3.5 overall.
Hmm.
And it's not because I think it's bad in any way. It's just I don't know. Nothing really caught on where I'd want to go back and listen to it over and over again. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
did. I guess if I listen to it a few more times, I'll listen to it twice. If I listen to it a few more times, some of them might grow on me, and then I might listen to it more. But it's not one of those albums that's reached out and grabbed me and you know, I just wanted to go and return to it over and over again. Like I remember, this is kind of way off the topic, but back in the '90s, I remember when Alanis Morissette, "Jagged Little Pill" came out. I had a really, really pretty little girlfriend, and she loved it. And I was like, "Oh, this is going to be just whiny, cry stuff." And I listened to it like one time. I was like, "This is like genius." I listened to it
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
mostly with her, but
Yeah.
it really resonated with
Yeah.
her because but
Yeah.
and then I thought, man, this is just like I can't believe how genius. Nothing like that came, sailing out of this album for me, really. Mother's Love, the first album, the song that's the first single that's released, is probably, I would say, it's probably the best of the album in my opinion. But anyway, that's my take on it.
I think that this album like is listenable. Like all the songs are kind of listenable. Like if I when I played it on as a musician, I can appreciate the musicianship of the album. Like kind of jamming it. But if I'm trying to understand like what band is playing this, like so if I was to say like just pretend like Collective Soul is not a famous band, and this band was going to take their CD out and try to win a lot of people over, I think it would kind of like miss a little bit because I feel like it's all over the place. Like to me, like a lot of the songs are just kind of like I don't know, like there's like what would Bob Dylan where are you, Bob
He's in New
Dylan,
York,
today?
like he's still alive, isn't he?
He he's not listening to this album. Let me tell you what's going on.
I hadn't
I'm
heard
just
that.
saying,
Where are you,
no,
Bob
it's
Dylan? Well,
terrible.
he's somewhere. I mean, he's just a
He's
guy.
somewhere. He's still alive. I think it's got to be like
Yeah.
89. But no. I hate to be negative on this album because like it just sounds to me like a lot of different bands in one album. Like if this was like a compilation, it would be kind of cool. I felt like the album sounded really dated to me. Like a lot of the guitar and singing stuff sounded like from like you might say early '90s, but to me it was like late '80s sounding. Like I mean, the vocalists were great. Like I remember the song like that my girlfriend was like, I really like that one song, and yes, the vocals are great, but it just seems like maybe because I'm not a collective. I like that song "Shine," but I'm not really like a Collective Soul. Like I haven't been listening to all their albums and stuff. And to me, like as a musician, I could like really jam. I think the song that she liked was "Let It
Yeah, that
Flow."
flow's good.
But
Or
yeah,
maybe
it had a
The
hook in
World
there,
I
and
Know. That was a good one.
yeah, are you talking about this
No,
album?
no,
No, that
that one
was
of their old songs. Yeah.
No, we're talking about this
Right.
album.
Right.
She liked it, Let It Flow. But the thing is, like, yeah, they do have those old hits like Shine. Now, after listening to this album, I'm thinking that maybe Billy Corgan was right. Maybe they stole that song from Smashing Pumpkins. At least the riff in that song. I'm thinking maybe. But no, I mean, it could have been like the guitar player heard like part of that song and then forgot about it and it came back in his subconscious, or it could have just
Doesn't
been
sound
luck
like
or whatever.
Smashing
But
Pumpkins
yeah,
to me. I'm sorry.
no, you go listen to the little riff in the
I
song at the
know what
beginning.
you're talking about. Yeah, I know what you're
But
talking
anyways, I
about. It
think
doesn't
though.
sound like Smashing Pumpkins to me.
But anyways, Billy Corgan. There's a big controversy. We had to talk about this on the last podcast where Billy Corgan thinks that Collective Soul ripped him off, and Cleave brought this to my attention. So, but he's convinced and so I'm kind of like neutral. I think it could be. I don't know, but no, I do love Bob Dylan. Like, was one of these tracks not the same came on, and I felt like he was trying to sound like Tom Petty-ish a little bit in that. And then there was another song that sounded straight up country to
Hmm.
Oh
me.
yeah,
keep it on track. It sounded like they're trying to do keep it on track, keep it on moving. I can see some line dancing coming on. And so it seems like they're just trying to do too much, which is fine. But I'm thinking about like a bunch of rich guys who got plenty of money. They already achieved what they wanted to do. And they're like, hey, let's make a record. We'll throw in this song, throw in that song. And it's kind of like the government. You don't have to perform. So these guys could make a record. They're going to know that their old fans are going to buy it. They're not having to actually compete with like if I were to make a record, I got to compete like on plane zero. I got to get some people to believe in the music because they're not getting in because they think I'm cool or because they already love all my other songs. I'm being kind of negative
You
tonight.
know,
Am I being too
no, it's
negative,
fine. I
guys?
mean,
Sorry.
this album to me was, very reminiscent of early 90s collective soul.
Yeah, it was.
To me, and to me, they were always a band. They're not really powerful as far as the emotions, as far as the way that they play, although a couple of their songs, do convey some powerful emotions, but the way their style is very laid back. They don't hit hard,
Yeah.
either emotionally or physically. They just kind of play, and then
They
some of the
You need to
lyrics that they
listen to a song called "Feeling Better Now." It was written after he got divorced. It was right after he was
mhm.
free. It's like that song is great.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's got some emotion in it for sure.
Well, yeah, they do. But to me, the style that he sings, the style that they
Yeah,
play, it's very detached, right? So when you get a song like "The World I Know," that is a emotionally powerful
emotional
song,
for me.
but the way they're playing it is very easy and soft, right? For the most part, and that's what I noticed.
Well, I mean, they're very talented. I mean, the guitars are talented. The vocals, you can tell is talented. This to me, this is like obvious. Obviously, everybody's like, "Duh," okay, but like this band is a band that was already going on before Nirvana, and they were making records or trying to hit. And I feel like this is one of those bands from the late '80s that kind of still took off in the early '90s because they had good music and they were like they weren't they weren't metal, so they didn't. Well, maybe they were earlier. I don't know if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of the hair bands just kind of fell off the charts whenever Nirvana came along,
Well, when
and I feel like this was one of those band that kind of like
Alice
Alice
in
in Chains
Chains
was a
was the
full on hair
ones.
metal band,
Alice in Chains was the one that
and they
caused the extinction of the hair bands. Actually, they came out with the Man in the Box. The next day,
yeah
they were taking off the hair bands, right? Because it was a
yeah
complete tonal shift, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is what we're doing now. Hair bands are over."
yeah.
And that's when
But
Warrant kind of
wasn't Collective
lost
Soul
their.
before were
Well,
they in that
Soul was
world at
around
first
93,
before?
I think, is when they first started becoming really popular. It was like
Yeah,
92,
I
93.
don't think they were around at the very beginning of the grunge, but they were at the tail end of it. And to me, they
Okay,
were always
maybe
kind
so.
of a anodyne, kind of
Well,
pleasant,
Shine's a great song. I mean, it's a
sounding
great song.
band,
A
but
heaven let your
they're not
light
like
shine down.
rock super heavy or you know uh,
when
Yeah.
did when was the heyday of the grunge, like Nirvana and stuff? When was that going on? That was
like
93, wasn't it?
92, 93. Yeah.
I think the whole grunge thing was like from like 92 to like 96, I think. And that was the heyday. Maybe like 98 carried over a little bit, but I feel like after we hit the 2000s we're already into
You're into
like
new
new
metal.
metal
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
yeah, and like it was a thing that happened and it did change music, but I feel like music kind of sprung back to like yeah, Alice in Chains is one of those bands that didn't start as any kind of grunge at all. They were just kind of hair band and really good
Not
guitar
really a
players and
hair
singers.
band. They were more of a just a heavy
But
metal band.
they're in that rock. Yeah, I guess maybe so. But if you look at the pictures of them, they
They
did
did have
have that
long
whole
hair. Yeah.
glam look. They wore spandex and all that kind of stuff. Go
Yeah,
look
they
it
did.
up. They
But
did. They did the spandex.
again,
They looked
they
like
were not a
Poison, but they
Poison
were.
type band. They were totally different. They were
Well,
more of a
around 90,
grunge band. Yeah, they just
well, around
looked
90,
like heavy metal.
93, yeah.
But even Nirvana started in the '80s. Nirvana was playing around in the
Yeah.
80, 89, I think, and before they
Well,
came
around
out.
92, 93, you get all those bands like Soundgarden, Collective Soul, Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots. All that stuff seemed to, Alice in Chains, all that stuff seemed to come out all at the same time right in that area.
Hmm.
Smashing Pumpkins, all that seemed to just
Yeah,
explode right there in the early 90s. And so I don't ever think of them before like 92. They might have been around before 92. I didn't really, I
yeah.
wasn't aware of them until 92 or
Yeah.
93. So I don't think of them.
Well, if you think about grunge, like Nirvana, Kurt Cobain, and those guys were listening to like '80s albums from Sonic Youth. They're like, "This is crazy, this is weird," but that was not what they did. But they were all fans of like the Meat Puppets, and I know Kurt Cobain spoke really highly of Sonic Youth, and Sonic Youth was very experimental, and it wasn't like the clean sounding metal that we have from Metallica or from all the good metal bands that are like more crisp and clean. Sonic Youth was just out there, bizarre noises and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
then I think Kurt Cobain with Nirvana did something that was more pop. It was like grunge is like, I hate to say pop, but it's like an anti-pop. It was like a listenable songs that weren't, there were actually like 3 or 4 minute songs that had a hook and it had a beginning and an
But they
end.
broke the
I don't
formula.
know, in
At
my
that
opinion.
point,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the heavy metal, hairband era, everything was extremely formulaic, and it was all about,
Yeah.
guitar
The
solos.
guitar solo.
kind of stuff.
Yeah. The drum solo.
And
Yeah.
I remember not
And,
liking Nirvana when they first came out. I didn't like them. I didn't appreciate them until probably about the mid to late '90s. And that when they first came out, it was just too jarring. All of the bands were
yeah.
just it was too much. And then because I was a big fan of the hair metal bands, a lot of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a teenager in the late '80s, so I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I was like, what's this crap? And then
In a way, like the '80s bands were like the last big giant bands, like the whole thing about the stadium rock and stuff like that. And so what they did was huge. And I feel like in the '80s it was just records were huge. I'm sorry for interrupting,
okay,
Cleve, but like I feel like right after that, right after the Nirvana hit, we started having Napster and stuff. So
yeah. And
it's
then
kind
about mid '90s, I was like, this is the best music ever. But when it first came out, it was a shock to the system.
it's kind of like what I tell my daughter. I was like, you can love your mom and you can love your dad. Cleve, it's okay. You can love hair metal and
And I
Nirvana. I
do.
want to tell you, you don't have to choose. We're both here for you when you're ready. That's what I tell my daughter.
At
And, and tell your mother to not talk bad about your dad because I'm not talking bad
at
about
that
her.
time,
Okay. I'm not going to talk bad about
when
hair
the
metal.
hair metal was still going on, right? But the alternative music was kind of, bubbling up from the underground. I did know a lot of people who were into the weird new music, and so I got into it really early. Probably before the hair metal apocalypse. But so when they came out, I was like, yes, yes, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all of these, I just loved them. And
Yeah, but when I hung out as a teenager, the same people who loved Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins also liked Guns N' Roses and
I did,
Metallica.
yeah.
It was like we're all just in the same kind of, we're a fraction of the same group, I think. So I
But
mean, Metallica is not necessarily hair metal. They're kind of like the middle of the
they
road.
were
Like
very
this
commercial
is
at
where
that point.
metal
They were
is.
very commercial, and we
Yeah,
enjoyed their
yeah,
music. But the grunge music, we knew that was something more new. That was something
yeah.
exciting. It wasn't
This is for
commercial.
us. It's not for
Right, right.
you. It's not for you rich people.
In
It's
the
for
late
us
'80s,
kids.
I was up the irons. I was very heavy into Iron Maiden.
Oh
So
yeah,
in
that's
the late,
cool. I love the dueling lead guitar solos, or the what do you call that? The harmonic guitar solos, kin to Thin Lizzy. Thin Lizzy did the guitar solos or harmonic guitar solos. That's what I
Remember
hear.
the
So,
dueling guitar solos on Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime?
yeah, that was a great album too.
That
I
was
loved
an
it.
incredible album.
And
I
Empire.
used to just go into bliss listening to that album. It was one of the best things I ever heard in my life.
Oh, I
I know
worn
there.
that. I worn that. I just listen, listen, listen. And then Empire came out. I listened to Empire,
It was
except for I
okay.
didn't like the song. I didn't like what was it, Silent Lucidity or whatever. I hated
Hmm.
that song.
Yeah.
But every other song I loved. I loved Jet City Woman and all that kind of stuff. And I certainly loved Operation Mindcrime.
Hmm. Hmm.
A band that's not as big that was out kind of in the late '80s and early '90s still is King's X, and I think they're from Houston.
Hmm.
I'm not sure, but they're kind of like in that. I wouldn't say hair metal, but they're in that kind of like that '80s kind of rock metal kind of scene. You like,
Maybe a little bit
the
prog rock,
real,
right? King's X.
yeah, maybe a little more. They had that song Black Flag, and they had a song called "It's Love That Puts the World Together," and I really liked that. They had a lot of vocals that were very singy, and then the guitars were
Hmm.
really
Hmm.
good.
Well, I'm old
So
enough that alternative, before the alternative music came out, the alternative to me was stuff like REM and Husker Du and you
Yes.
know,
Hmm.
and what
Yeah.
was the other one? Skylarking. I can't. Skylarking is the name of the album, but I can't think of the band name at the moment. But anyway,
Well, yeah, and all punk music like before the 90s in the 80s was very like it could be anything. Punk is like the Ramones, but it's also, something different. And like Sonic Youth is punk sort of like, I guess. Well, it's more classified than that, but I feel like after the 90s all punk music kind of got in the early 90s it all got kind of this pop punk like it all got to be like Green Day. And I will say this right now, and just for the record, somebody changed my mind, but Green Day is one of my most, I think, overrated
oh
bands.
yeah, yeah,
I feel most overrated band. It's okay, but it's just to me, it's just overrated. It's like I don't know. That's my opinion, but it's one person's opinion.
yeah. I didn't care much for them. XTC. That's what I was trying to think of. XTC.
Oh yeah,
Skylarking. Anyway,
there's a lot of good bands from the late '80s, early '90s that made really good music that maybe are not as popular today, but are really
Hmm.
good.
Hmm. A lot of
definitely.
obscure bands. Yeah.
And they're not even that obscure. They were really big in the '80s. XTC, I remember that. It was like Ecstasy or XTC.
Yeah.
Well, so today I kind of dogged on both of these albums. I would probably give Collective Soul 2 stars on this one, but I mean they're a great band. But just to me, if I were to say it's not bad, it's okay. That's where I put it at. Is okay. It's okay. And actually, I listened to it, but there's nothing I'm going to put on a playlist probably that I'm going to say like I got to listen to that. So that's for me. It's like a 2 star out of 5. But I know it's kind of harsh, but I mean like somebody's got to be that
To
guy.
me, it's pleasant music. It's kind of background music,
Yeah.
really. It's something that you could put on in the background and it would sound good, and it would put you in a good mood probably because it sounds
Yeah.
pleasant and it's not harsh.
Very poppy up.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I prefer like music that has a punch to it, something that's kind of, where you can hear the passion come through. Uh,
Yeah.
one example of that I thought of when I listened to this album, like as a contrast. I don't know if you guys ever listened to Tonic before.
Hmm.
Tonic.
I've heard them, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
We
But
actually
does
opened up for the lead singer of Tonic, my old band in Mississippi, uh, and I got to meet him. Right, so I'd never heard of Tonic or listened to their music. I might have heard him in passing. So he was a really nice guy, and we talked a little bit. He talked about how he was addicted to coffee because he used to be a fisherman, off the East Coast. He was from the East Coast, and so after that show, I went back and looked them up and everything and started listening to Tonic. And it was just, to me, incredibly powerful. Lemon Parade was just an astounding album to me. It was so passionate all the way through, so dramatic, so much drama, so much heart to it. So definitely something maybe to check out if you feel like it. Early 90s music, not grunge per se, but just really good rock and roll. Definitely recommend that. And I thought, yeah, I like to hear music like that. That's like really got punch to it. But, this is, I don't hate. It's just it's more pleasant, more background for me.
Hmm.
come on, give us a positive spin, Cleve, on this album because we are awesome.
Well, as a fan of Collective Soul from the '90s, and I even listened to stuff in their 2000s. I don't know if you guys remember the song "Heavy" that they came out with, or the song I think "Feeling Better Now" came out in one of their later albums, and it's just super catchy and has a good hook to it. And if you've ever been divorced and feeling better, is definitely your song. Yeah. But because that's what it's about basically. And there's a couple others, like "Counting the Days" is another song from Collective Soul that's really great. And I was hoping to hear songs like those. And what we got was, we had maybe one, two songs that are kind of like that, and the rest are just kind of like, I'm getting old. Look at me, how I sing now, and that kind of stuff. And so I want to be more positive with it because I am a huge fan of Collective Soul. However, I don't know. This album was it just didn't get there. I just didn't get there for it. Just didn't get there for me for some reason. I didn't
My
resonate with
girlfriend
it.
said that she thought the first two tracks, the vocals reminded her of David Bowie. I don't know if that's true, but it did sound cool. So, the vocal style really
Hmm.
sounded cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good stuff on the album. I mean, if you listen to it a few times, it'd probably grow on me if I did. But
Mm-hmm.
just nothing really grabbed me. Well, a couple grabbed me right away. Mother's love grabbed me, of course, and then but it sounded just like old '90s Collective Soul. It sounded
Hmm.
exactly like them. And but a couple of others, it was kind of like, yeah, I'd listened to about half the song. I was like, skip.
Oh my god. Okay, well, guys, you guys should buy this album. Okay, I'm telling you right now, buy 10 copies because they need the
Hmm.
sales. Okay, so get out there, get some sales to this
No
book
one buys albums
novel. I mean,
anymore.
this. Nobody buys them. Download them. Listen to it on Spotify. Hey, we could be full of crap, so you guys listen to it yourself. Don't let us poison your thoughts. But yeah, it was pretty good. It just to me was okay. It was just okay. That's what I would say.
Yeah, it was
Just
okay.
okay.
A lot of the newer stuff from old bands to me right now have been just okay. I don't know why.
Yeah. Now, are they like how old are these guys now? I'm wonder. Are they in their
They're in
50s or
their
60s
60s
now?
probably.
Yeah, probably 60s. It doesn't mean anything because Willie Nelson still makes music. Still could
And
be
he's still
making
He's
music.
good. He's still
I
good.
he's
and I want to tell you something. Okay, we're gonna go back to last podcast. If you haven't watched the last podcast or listened to it, we talked about we talked about the Joe Rogan podcast. We were not too. I wouldn't say it was positive on that one. And then we talked about Smashing Pumpkins and Gory More and Me. And I gotta give y'all an update on that. This is like my favorite album that I've heard this year. I've been listening to it over and over, and I really like it. I really like. It's just a mood. Now, see, in contrast, I know I'm a fan of Smashing Pumpkins, but I haven't had an album that I really liked from Smashing Pumpkins since um, Melancholy and Infinite Sadness. And so to me, on this Here to Eternity for Collective Soul, every song sounded like almost every song, like a couple songs sound the same, but a lot of songs sound like different bands as I listened. There's a country song, there's kind of a Bob Dylan type song. And anyways, but the Smashing Pumpkin album, I can just listen to it over and over. And I think it's a mood. I think it's just a personal preference. It just really made me feel good. And I listened to some of the interviews with Billy Corgan about how they made the record and how it was kind of a throwback to how they made records in the 90s. So maybe, again, we're looking back at the pains of the past, the nostalgia. Maybe I have like something I just love about that period of my life where I would love to go back to like 1997 and just like, but then again, some of our mistakes are our best things because,
Smashing
I've
Pumpkins
got three
albums
children.
are things of beauty, by the way, to me. The
Yeah.
way that
Yeah.
the way that they did the instrumentation, the drummer
Mm-hmm.
was amazing. He is one of my favorite drummers of all time. The work he did,
Jimmy
yeah,
Chamberlain. Yeah.
and the bass lines are nice. The guitar work is amazing. Even the way Billy
Yeah.
Corgan makes noise is better than most
Yeah.
guitars can play chords. It's just
Yes, but I want to put this in contrast because after that, when I listened to that album, and one of the albums came on,
zeitgeist, zeitgeist.
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 I listened. It's a 2007 release. I listened to that right afterwards, and I'll say right now, I think that album sucked. It's just not that good. You listen to it, like every song just sounds like da da, and so like, but that's my personal opinion. It's just one man's opinion, man. It's like one man's
Well, people
opinion.
throw out the word genius way too much nowadays, but there's no doubt in my
Yeah,
mind that Billy Corgan is a genius.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
He's even got the
Eccentricities.
weirdness.
Eccentricities. Yeah,
Yeah, eccentric. I can't say the word weirdness factor.
eccentricities, or I don't know.
Um,
Yes.
but that album, I guess I need to listen to it a couple more times because it didn't really reach out.
I got you. It's okay. That's okay. But I think, and actually, I was thinking about it. I really did never listen to Adore, and then I remember that song. I need to go back and listen to that because some people are talking about how Adore came after Melancholy, Infinite Sadness, and I need to check that album out.
That
Adore
is
by
a great
Smashing
album.
Pumpkins.
It's
But
got the La
but I was going
Dolly
to
on
say,
it. It's a good song.
yeah. But I was just in contrast to like Zeitgeist or Machina of the Gods or whatever. I didn't think those were that good, but that's just my opinion. Because I recently listened to them because of reviewing a Gory More and Me, and a Gory More and Me. I think I'm trying to figure out what the meaning of that is, but I think a Gory means undo, and I think the whole album means undo me. That's the meaning of the title. I think that's what it means, but I could be wrong. Somebody else will tell me. And so I feel like they maybe undoing the past because they said they wanted to do it like the old, and
More
so they
would be
couldn't be
like
like the
your
old.
mortality, your death, right?
Like, yeah.
Maybe, but but my thing. So we're going back to last week's podcast. We talked about this, so we're just kind of splurging on old content. So go check out that podcast if you want to know more about Gore Mori Me. But in contrast to that album, I feel like even though Smashing Pumpkins was going back to the past because it was something he hadn't done in a long time, I feel like it was something new. And I will say, like, they knew it wasn't going to be as big as Melancholy and Infinite Sadness. And when I watched some interviews by Billy Corgan, he said that that's how they made music in the 90s, and then they got bored with that, and so they started making music differently. And then they thought, well, maybe it'd be cool to go back to how we made it back then, because now it's new. And I feel like that something about that brought it back to me. But it's just it is a very moody album, so if you're just not in the mood for that, it's every song does lead into the next one, so you're not getting a lot of I don't know, and it's not very punchy. It is very
Plus, he's
moody.
got his
So, anyways,
guitar back,
what
right?
do
He lost his guitar; it got
yeah,
stolen for like
yep,
20
yep,
or 30 years, and then somebody returned it to him. So he's got his
yep,
original Stratocaster that he used on those first recordings, right? Those first recordings that were so
yep.
just incredible before
Hmm.
before Siamese Dream, the album that he came out with
Yeah,
before that. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
but what I watched on a lot of these videos is that they've gone through a lot of phases. Where I think in the early '90s he was very optimistic about his music and stuff, and it seemed like they were super successful to me. But he thought it was going to keep going like it was Melancholy and Siamese Dream, and I feel like at some point people kind of like stopped being in his corner. And I think they even sued each other. The band sued each other and stuff. So it was a lot of crazy stuff. So he had a lot of personal problems and even like suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. And now he's married and has children, and life's completely different. And listening to him sounds like a really interesting person now, because he's not the angsty person that wrote Bullets with Butterfly Wings. He seems like more of an adult, where he's like, hey, I realized I didn't know everything, and I'm not smarter than everybody in the world. So it's really different. So that's funny, because we're going back to last week's podcast. So if you want to know more about that, we're supposed to be talking about Collective Soul, and I'm sorry,
Well,
got
it's
us off the
90s,
track.
more 90s music.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there anything
So
contemporary that you guys have listened to that's, lately? Have any of you come up with something like that before we go?
a new
Like
release
maybe,
that's of a new band, or is it an old release of a new? I mean, I'll tell you the new music that I listen to. That's like not like from the '90s. I listen to Lord Huron. I like that band. I like the War on Drugs. But I mean, some of their albums have been out for like 5 or 10 years. I'm trying to think of more contemporary artists that I like that are not like, didn't start in the '90s or '80s. I
One of
think.
the guys that I like the most that I've seen lately is Kasabian. Kasabian is a band that is sort of electronic and sort of hip hop, uh, and sort of rock, kind of blends a lot of stuff together. But other than that, actually, I would say a lot of the music that I'm really liking lately is coming from bands that we've been playing with, like, for instance, Mother Ghost, Mind Mind, um, the Cops. There's a band called the Cops that we played with the other day. They were amazing.
are they
So
a three piece?
no, I think they were a five piece. They were a
Kidding.
five piece.
No, I'm just kidding because the police,
Yeah. Like the
police
police.
the
Here is
Yeah,
cops.
the Cops. Yeah, but
I'm starting a new band. It's called the Sheriff
mhm, mhm.
Deputies,
Three piece.
Sheriff Department.
But I could definitely recommend you
Yeah,
some of these guys if you want to listen to them. Some of them
Yeah.
punk, some of them not. But
to check it
Well,
out.
you guys probably know my contemporary band list is The Warning, of course.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna definitely renew. Let's go ahead and review the Warnings the latest 2024 album next show, and we'll go ahead and compare the growth from their first album, 21st Century.
Blood.
What's it called? 21st Century Blood. We'll compare the two albums as far as like the dynamic depth of their
It's definitely
souls. We're
different.
gonna just judge them as artists, because we're
mhm,
critics.
mhm.
We're soulless critics who judge other people, even though they put their work into it. We just judge the
That
heck out of them.
sucks.
That's what my job
Yeah.
is to do. Just judge them like they have no
Mhm.
talent. No, seriously, I feel bad. But the Collective Soul album was good. It's just, to me, there's nothing that stuck out. unless you be honest, like in the music world, you got to have something that really sticks out. And again, like what Cleave said last episode, he's right. Like every one of those songs and the Gory Mori Me were kind of similar. Nothing really stuck out. To me, I think, and I'm rambling again, but pentagrams and that Kali, or what is it called? I forgot, not Kali, but I forgot the name of it right now. I can't even think of it. But they had like 2 or 3 songs on there that I did like that stuck out, but I really liked the whole album. But I'd say like with the Collective Soul album, to me, like it sounded like several different bands. They just didn't have that one song that really stuck out. Like if they're up and coming band, but Billy Corgan's so weird too. His singing is like, if you hear a Smashing Pumpkins song, you don't go like, who is that band?
It's
That
true.
sounds like somebody I know. You just know automatically that's Billy Corgan. Kind of the same thing with Willie Nelson. As soon as you hear him singing, that's Willie Nelson. You can like it or love it or hate it, but it's Willie Nelson. So he does have that ability to just exactly who he is, which is very unique. And
I've mentioned this before, but you guys really, really need to listen to Greta Van Fleet. If you
okay,
like,
we need to
if
listen
you
to it.
like Led Zeppelin, you'd love Greta
Yeah.
Van Fleet. Now, it's not a country singer because there's someone like Greta. What's her name? Greta. Somebody that's
Van Kraus
Van.
or something.
Yeah.
I will say I like Led Zeppelin. I love John Paul Jones, and probably one of my favorite bands that ever came together was them Crooked Vultures. I love Queens of the Stone Age. That's another band I really love. And then they had John Paul Jones on there with them for that one album, uh, them Crooked Vultures. Really awesome
Well,
album. It's only one album though,
of
but
course,
I
Greta
love
Van
it.
Fleet is not exactly like them, but they're a new band. It's one of the new contemporary bands.
Yeah. We definitely have to review them too, and we'll try to pick up some of those bands you mentioned too, Nate,
Yeah,
and maybe
you can
we
write
can
them
go
down.
ahead and dissect some of those albums. Well, guys, I'm sorry for rambling so much. We talked about a lot of things that weren't on the menu. Apologize. My ADHD might have been kicking in a little bit, and my imposter syndrome was like going in defense mode. Yeah. So, anyways, I think the book's going to turn out okay. Hopefully, we'll see what the fans say. We'll see. So, does anybody else want to ramble us off before I cut the show?
I think I'm good. I don't want
Nope.
to get started rambling because then I
I
won't be
think
able
we
to
ran.
stop.
Okay. All right, guys. This is Rambling Merick N H Ulrik podcast with our guest Cleave Bourbon and Nate Glenn from Loose Helmet. So we'll see you on the flip side next time. And thanks, guys, for listening. And we'll please leave your comments and like and subscribe to this channel, whatever you're listening to. And if you think I'm full of crap, please let me know. Just give me a comment, whatever. I would love to hear it. Thank you. Talk to you later. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week where I interview fantasy author Cleave Bourbon. It's going to be a great show. You don't want to miss it.